The Huxley College of the Environment was founded 45 years ago as one of the first environmental colleges in the entire world. And in 1979, a student by the name of Brian Blix took over the college newsletter. It was called the Huxley Humus. Well, in the 35 years since, faculty and students have built what is now named The Planet into the nationally award-winning publication that it is today.
This is the home of The Planet magazine, a quarterly environmental science magazine published by Western Washington University students in Bellingham, Washington. The Planet has won national and regional awards and has readership throughout the country. Founded in 1979, the magazine has 35 years of history and a long story that has brought it to where it is today. Huxley College began in 1969 as one of the first environmental colleges in the United States.
At the time when Huxley was founded, there was virtually no recycling. Words like ecology, words even like environment were new to most Americans. It was really the first college in the world that was dedicated to environmental studies and environmental research.
The founders of the college wanted it to be an interdisciplinary and experimental college that included all the major tools by which society could approach environmental problem solving and prevention of further problems. So environmental science and policy and planning and education.
Students and faculty wanted the environmental education at Huxley to reach beyond campus, to the community and the world. Students worked with the community to promote environmental action through an outreach program called Huxley Environmental Resource Bureau, abbreviated as HERB. HERB created the first recycling center in Whatcom County and occasionally published a small newsletter called the Huxley Humus. During the 1970s, environmental journalism was also starting to emerge, and many Huxley students were interested in pursuing the field. At the time, however, the journalism program was somewhat closed to outside students, and it was difficult for Huxley students to get involved with existing student publications. The Huxley Humus was available for students, but it was infrequent and casual. Students wanted their voices to be heard and an outlet for environmental journalism. In 1979, a student named Brian Blix decided to make a publication of his own, taking over the Humus and changing its name and mission.
I was very critical of the Huxley Humus. It didn't have any visual appeal much at all, and the writing wasn't very literary, and it was kind of like granola based, you know. And so I was very much struck with the necessity to take it to another level. I was thinking of the Daily Planet, you know, Superman, Daily Clark Kent, and I mentioned different names like Ecotone or the Green Fuse or Ouroboros for some reason. I don't know why I came up with that. But then I mentioned The Planet, and then Matt said, well, how about the Monthly Planet? And being a bit of a poet, I like those ends. You know, it sounds right, the Monthly Planet, you know, and then maybe we'll even come out every month, you know.
The Monthly Planet was launched in fall of 1979, operating as a modest publication written and funded by students. John Miles later operated as advisor, and a Planet seminar was offered to students for credit.
None of us knew anything, had any experience whatsoever in skillfully or educatedly laying out anything. So we used everything to stick it together except for duct tape. We realized that wouldn't look so good, but it was basically snipping typewritten columns and cutting out these pieces of paper and then scotch taping them as parallel as we could.
In 1985, John Miles was appointed as Dean of Huxley, and Miles needed someone to run the Planet. Miles hired Michael Fromm, once introduced as the man who was fired from every job he's ever had. Fromm was a well-known journalist with a reputation for environmental advocacy. During the 1960s, Fromm had been the conservation editor for Field and Stream magazine and columnist for American Forest magazine. But Fromm went beyond the role of a conventional journalist, addressing environmental problems and naming those he felt were responsible for them. Michael Fromm took over as Planet advisor in 1988, in addition to teaching a class called Environmental Journalism at Huxley.
Michael believed that to be honest and truthful, journalists needed to take a stand, and they needed to be activists, and they needed to have a point of view, and they needed to express that point of view And so he was much more fiery than I was, or I think many of the advisors were. And the energy, though, that he brought to the program was really valuable, because I think, he fired students up, he fired Huxley up, he was not afraid to ruffle feathers and vigorously defend the position he was going from.
As the planet and the environmental journalism courses grew in popularity, students approached John Miles and proposed that Huxley create a major for environmental journalism. The environmental journalism degree was created in 1987 as a collaboration between Huxley College and the Western Washington University Journalism Department. With the new degree, the Planet was granted university funding, and other student publications started to accept Huxley students. Today, the Planet is advised by Rebecca Patchy Green.
I think Planet has survived for 35 years because it's resilient, it adapts, it hasn't stayed the same. But at the same time, as it's adapted in its outward feel and its look, it has stayed totally true to its mission, which is responsible journalism about environmental issues. And because it has that core mission that can pass on from each editorial team to the next, and from each advisor to the next, it's strong.
Hardware and technology, and we can't just close the existing power plants and risk that we'll have blackouts, but we have to gradually replace it with a newer, cleaner, and more efficient system. And how do you do that, when it means adding more power supply, say from wind power, that tends to vary in time, and you have to manage that as you rely on that kind of